political power players. INEC, I must commend INEC. That is the reason why when we were trying to apportion percentage of appraisal for INEC on the day of the election, I said it is not yet over. Let us hold on until after collation has finished, until when certificates of return are given to elected leaders peacefully. Then from there, we'll be able to now rate the performance. We will be able to now judge percentage. You see, the stakeholders in any political power play are the political parties, the contestants, and political stakeholders that are traditionally there in all nooks and corners of the Federation of Nigeria. And flagrant refusal to play by the law is the main reason behind the negative quality of power play we are seeing. Section 221 to 229 clearly predicates the way political parties should play their game in decorum, especially 224, that even gives them the pointer that whatever you are going to do should be in tandem with the interests and aspirations of the citizenry. That is part 2 of the Constitution, which talks about section 3 down to sections 24. These are sections that are talking about tailoring your political power play as service to the people, not as avenues of contesting to get into office in order to acquire a position or to acquire self-enrichment. If you look at the totality of the political parties, they are not predicated upon the hingement of the deliverables that the citizenry should expect from these political parties. They are not hinged upon the doctrine of what you want to do to the system. In other words, party ideology. And that is the reason why you see them rushing to create so many number of political parties just for it to serve as platforms, especially whereby the leaders of the political parties in existence are not ready to even play by the rules when it comes to the issue of determination of who will be the party flag bearers, in other words, the party primaries. Okay. So the lack of moral psyche in the brain of the politicians in Nigeria, absence of morality in the way we play it, absence of playing with ethics, playing with conduct, believing that you are a stakeholder in the enrichment of the quality of governance and developmental impetus for Nigeria. That is the basis upon which we get all this. It's not the problem of INEC at all. INEC should be commended. No matter how beautiful is a house, you cannot prevent the house from getting burnt if the occupants there deliberately decided to set it ablaze. So it's not the assemblage of the law. It's not the intendment of INEC. If you take the issue of general insecurity, for example, the Electoral Act Section 29, subsection 3, predicates on INEC to be the one that will superintend the general coordination of security. But that is a fallacy, because INEC doesn't have policemen, doesn't have military, doesn't have any of this. So for that to succeed, all other people should take it as a collective responsibility. For example, the police, take it under Chapter 4 of the Police Act of 2004. Take it that you have responsibility under that in Section 22 and 24 and Section 60 to arrest, to detain, and even to penalize the culprit instantly. Have they done that? They cannot do that because the same regulation said they should not hold arms. Why will you prevent them from holding arms when those that are snatching the ballot papers or committing trouble are coming with high, superior weapons?
Now, that's one argument that's been made now.
Yes.
There is a need to rethink the issue of security at polling venues. You know, first of all, you had armed men and people complained that they were intimidated, they felt intimidated by armed.
Up to now, the law has not prohibited them from doing that.
But now you have unarmed security personnel, even though at 300
the unarmed arms are talking, this is talking about regulation for the conduct of election.
But if someone comes to a station and disrupts it,
what I'm saying, let me make this important point.
Yes.
The position of the Constitution, Section 221, Section 214 to 216, regarding the power of the police, and 217 to 220 regarding the power of the armed forces, is superior over and above any other electoral act. Because Section 1 of the Constitution says any law or any regulation that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution, to the extent of such inconsistencies, is null, void, and of no effect. So therefore, the police and the decision for them to discharge the role of the Constitution, Section 214, like I said, up to 220, it is essential here. They have the right to carry arms.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Well, election is a civil matter. That's it. And I think we must underscore that point. So in the concentric circle of election security, we know that the military has a place in the outside perimeters of the communities. Right. And in our own particular case, we already have military in 34 states performing military functions already in those 34 states. That has nothing to do with elections. Okay. So we must be able to delineate those two. Now, because it's a civil matter, the police and other security agencies will have to play leading role, especially the police, leading in provisioning for election security. And that's important. So what is that? You now say simply that in the polling units, you do not have armed men. Now, the reason is simple. You worry about professionalism, you worry about compromise, and then you put an armed person in the polling unit, and he just puts a gun on the head of the presiding officer and say, right.
Okay.
And tells everybody to get out of the place.
Okay.
He's armed.
Right.
So you are dealing in navigating this challenge, you do not solve that problem by adding another problem. The next important thing is that within 300 meters, there are armed men.
All right.
So when this person in the polling unit has issues, the expectation is that there is a coordinating link between the person in the polling unit and the armed security men that are outside 300 meters away to assist this person. But the challenge you have is dereliction of duty. When you have armed state-backed thugs running, having free reign, what that tells you is that it is not a challenge of INEC. And I think we must, you see, I took a leave of conversations about looking at the activities of INEC. For most of 2010, 2011, 2013, the reform attention was on INEC. And it is today the most oversighted public institution in Nigeria. Everybody talks about INEC. INEC has had incremental progress even in its own internal governance issues. This is the institution that has taken its own officials and interdicted them, suspended some of them, and even have taken some of them to court on account of. That does not say that there are no electoral officers, as we are seeing now, who are playing. And but you are also see, you saw in the Imo State open collation this thing, where the INEC resident electoral commissioner ordered the arrest of an EO on live television. So the point is that we cannot take away the misdemeanor of the political class. Their intention, clear intention, and desperation. Law was, my brother, Dr. Law, was talking about, you know, since 1999, where did you hear people go and burn INEC office? Go and set ablaze INEC office, where you have to now use security to rescue officials from the place, and then they run into INEC office and they are followed. Where have you seen collation officers diverted from where they are supposed to stay and taken into a hotel, into a state house in open glare? Where does that happen? The folks who do these things are having a good time because nobody is talking about them. It is not INEC. INEC has improved its own processing. If you watched the presidential election and the process in terms of when polls opened for these state elections, you saw that all over the country there's a remarkable difference in terms of process. The times polls opened, the times accreditation took place. But what we have dealt with, what we have not been able to drive away from our electoral process is the desperation that politicians are showing all over the country.
Desperation they're showing, all right, and then they want to have their fingers into this pie, as they say, called Nigeria. But the question is, why would you destroy what you want to have? It doesn't make sense, does it?
You see, INEC trying, right? We are not looking for trial and error here. INEC has an act governing its conduct, right? Where the people you deployed are not complying with those acts, right? You call off the process until you can get it right. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So what is inconclusive?
Wait a minute.
What is inconclusive election?
Inconclusive election is different from calling off the process. Inconclusive election means that you cannot declare a winner based on the difference between... No, wait now. Just wait now. Inconclusive election means that a winner has not emerged. Let me put it like that. Simple. Whatever interpretation you're giving it, that is not within this circumference, is not addressing the issue. Now, to come to your question, right? You said, you want to know, given this scenario, what could have been done differently, right? Was that where you were coming from? I believe that election is not rocket science anymore. Even Ghana has gotten it right. You see, sir, it is the bar. We have lowered the bar to the point that we no longer care for, standards and best practices. This is very fundamental. When you begin to find excuses for clear failure, right? We are making excuses. We don't need to apportion percentage of performance to anybody. We want excellence. INEC got all the money they needed. But there are reasons why INEC may be suffering some constraints. For example, the ad hoc staff. The ad hoc staff brought in, just for the purpose, about 800 and something thousand of them. That is quite enormous. Coming from outside.
$1 million.
You understand what I'm saying? It's almost $1 million. Coming from outside direct control of the commission. Do you understand what I'm saying? That in itself is a problem. And the fact that we are not able to transmit results generated in the polling units instantaneously, where you now begin to rely on papers and somebody thought the result, and because of it, you're now saying there is no result, there is no election. You see, that is a failure of the system in itself.
Well, let's get this right. Perhaps the Minister would come in here.
Yes.
The collation is meant to be manual.
Yes.
If you need to change that, then you must change the law. Don't you have to do that?
It's just a,
Right.
a
So
result.
that's it.
It's just
So
a result
it
of the desperation.
So
If
would that
political
be the
parties-
fault if the rules say this is what you do?
Yeah.
Would that be the fault of the referee? Or
It's not-
would it be
it's
just...
not-
No, it's not the fault of the
It's not the
referee.
fault of INEC at all. The
it's-
reason is that it is the blatant desperation on the side of the politicians. It's a simple matter. Galvanize all your electoral agents, whether at the polling centers or at the ward level or at the local government level or at the state level. Galvanize them and collate the details of what they have signed.
Simple.
Call them on after the declaration of the results, declaring the winner and giving him certificate of run. You have the impetus of going to the tribunal to challenge it based on the facts you have gathered. But instead of using that, unnecessarily they are overheating the polity.
Well, take the example of Rivers.
Can I add something?
Right.
Let me add something to what Mesara said.
Yes.
See, I keep saying this is not rocket science. The results declared at the polling units,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Parties ought to have copies of the results.
They have.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So even if you tear a copy at the collation point, there are other copies.
Exactly.
Even the security system, the security operatives are entitled to a copy.
They are.
Now,
And
Wait a minute.
Let
Wait a minute. See, listen. Let me tell you. Results that are collated at the wards, there are copies, not just one.
Exactly.
Nobody can tear the entire copies.
Yes.
I keep talking about INEC. You know why?
Yes.
INEC allowed political parties that had no business in this election to field 70-something presidential candidates.
Yes.
Wait a minute. Cyril, do you know that is even a violation of some extant rules? The Constitution provided guides for who will run for the presidency. You have to cover 2/3 of Nigeria to emerge. How many of them showed evidence that they were present in 2/3 of Nigeria? Not many did. They didn't even have party agents. And they were allowed to run as candidates in this election. That in itself is a problem created by INEC for itself.
Isn't what you're going to come in here, but I will return to the issue of why they had so many parties. Because if they fulfill the conditions for registration,
they didn't.
Well, I don't think. Would they have been registered if they had not fulfilled the conditions?
I think we need to contextualize the conversation and put it in proper perspective. Yeah, and if you are able to do that, then you do that based on knowledge.
Right.
Registration of political parties, there are conditions for which they are registered.
And when they fulfill those conditions,
they are registered. Right. What we need to do is to put a criteria for you to appear on the ballot. It is undemocratic to say that political parties cannot emerge. If people decide to have parties in their village, it is their political parties. They are right under the law to do so. But you can say, look, if you have to come on this ballot, you will have to win so and so number of seats. And that is already part of what is going on. Then the next thing is that you are talking about reconstruction. In the electoral guidelines, there is what you call reconstruction or regeneration of results, like the ones that are torn. If you tear them, INEC is permitted under its own guidelines to regenerate those results through the sources that you have talked about.
Yes.
You understand? So, Idato South, in Imo State results was torn, at the point of collation. INEC will simply reconstruct it and bring it back to. So, those are things that already exist. They are not outside the purview of what the Commission is already doing. Right. So the point, therefore, for me is to say, look, if we want to, we are not apportioning blames. We are saying that, look, process is improving. You have introduced PVC and smart card reader. All that somebody needs to do is to come to the place, present himself, the PVC, the smart card reader authenticates you, identifies and confirms that you are the owner of this card, and then you are allowed to vote. And then you come back, politicians conniving with presiding officers will say, look, bypass this process so that you are not able to capture technologically the number of people who have come to vote. And when that happens, the regulations is that if there is a community resistance against the use of smart card reader, record a zero for that area. Now, when the commission does that, if there is violence, if there is overvoting, you cancel. When the number of cancelled votes and the number that differentiates the two ruling parties, you go into what you call inconclusive election. You do not make a return in that election. So these are clear guideline issues. So when the commission punishes politicians or sanctions them for misdemeanor, which is what we are not having before. And I think we need to reiterate that. What used to happen is that when these rules are violated, you run over them and make a call and make a return. Once you make a return, politicians are happy. The one who has the biggest access to the electoral management body gets a return. Where were we in 2007? When somebody will be voting, and the returns will be made on the polling center where that person is voting, an announcement will be made. That's the kind of country we are running. So we have a commission today that is interested in rules, that if you break those rules, there is no need to be emotional about it. It will cost money, it will cost time, but if we want to talk about strong institutions and building one, we need to encourage INEC to continue to do the necessary. When politicians misbehave, they shouldn't be rewarded for their misdemeanor. They shouldn't be rewarded. They should pay the price. And the price they have to pay is that you do not go and hijack an electoral official, ambush that electoral official, and expect to get a certificate of return for your bad behavior. So for me, therefore, is that my poor view is placed on the attitude of the politician. We have worked very hard to see that we are bringing in, innovation in the electoral process, and those things are coming up, they are working, but the politicians are, today in 2019, we have not seen the level of desperation that we have seen in this current election by the political class.
Well, the politicians are drawn from larger society, aren't they?
Yes.
Perhaps you as a social psychologist can tell us if it's right to say, a nation deserves the political.
It is quite in order because leaders evolve from the people, right? And yes, I will agree with Eze, to some extent, right? As far as I am concerned, the law is there to guide behavior, right? If you're not doing the right thing, right, you get punished for it. I agree. I want that, follow to its logical conclusion. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let's use the case of Rivers State, for example, right? We talked about participation of the military in election, right? The military is not supposed to participate in the election directly, but they can participate indirectly. The concentric circle, right? Circles of security, they occupy the outer wing in case the police requires assistance, where you have total breakdown of law and order. You may need the army to come in. But in Rivers, was that actually what we saw? Well, I don't know.
INEC has sent a team, right?
So
fact-finding, right?
Yes. Okay, let me, Sylvia, before we go, let me give you an example. You have collation officers from a certain university, right? Coming to work in a particular state, and then you have made all that plans, and then they get into the town, the city where they are coming to, and he talked about, Law talked about the ad hoc staff, these collation officers, and they come into that city, and they are hijacked and diverted into government house. Now, INEC did not go ahead with using those people. It was going to, if it was in the past, they would leave the government house and be the ones conducting the elections and run. INEC immediately stepped that people from that university down.
That is commendable.
And went to source immediay. And that is why you saw the delay in most of the states that the state where
that's wonderful.
Right.
That's
wonderful. Where I want to come in is the fact that the Nigerian military, they've suffered a lot of castigation. Sincerely speaking, the Nigerian military deserves commendation rather than castigation. They deserve commendation. Fundamentally speaking, based on the position of the law, Section 217 to 220 talks about the responsibility of the Nigerian members of the armed forces generally in nation building. They are only supposed to be responsible for protecting the nation against external aggression, or when there is very serious calamity in the nation, or when you have situation of anarchy within the civil polity beyond the control of the police, or when there is a matter of international engagement. These are its responsibilities. Now, the same constitution that gives the police the power, 214 to 216, is not being realistic, because you said that the police should be responsible for the general internal security. Now, during the election, you said by virtue of Section 29(3 is the Independent Electoral Commission. And it was even said by virtue of Section 150 of the Electoral Act that it is the INEC that should prosecute the culprits. Now, the police that you are talking about, the totality of their number is just a little below 400,000. Half of this number is already deployed to Mr. Somebodies within the country. The second half is divided into two. The first half, which is about 100, goes for protection of banks, ambassadorial missions, that is embassies, oil installations, and corporate organizations of all these multinational corporations and companies of Mr. Somebody's Nigerians. The remaining 100,000 out of it, some of them are supposed to guard governmental installations and institutions, and then the residue of which should be deployed for electoral management. Tell me what magic can the Nigerian police do without calling for the military to come and assist? Already the military, like he said, in all the states of the Federation, they are there performing civic responsibilities because in tandem with sections 23 and 24, they have no option than to serve. First service to the fatherland. So we have to take it from the angle of collective responsibility of everybody for us to see the success of this electioneering engineering so that at the end, it is Nigeria that will be congratulated, not INEC, not police, not military, not contestant, not even the citizenry that go there to vote. It is a collective responsibility, and military should be commended. If you don't want to commend the military, then you should be able to stop all the orchestrated shenanigans the politicians are cooking up to warrant the military coming in to fill the vacuum.
Tough, gentlemen, but
not so now.
Yes, but okay. Well, we've seen interesting trends too.
Yeah.
For those places that didn't have military issues, or that didn't record a high level of violence. We've seen gains and losses.
Yeah.
We've seen one party make an incursion into an area that was the exclusive preserve of another party.
Very beautiful.
What do these do these say that things are churning out?
I think, the two leading parties. Let me say one thing from this outset. I am an apostle of two-party system. And once you have two-party system with a provision for independent candidates, Nigeria will be home and dry. That's my position. I may be wrong. And if you check, since the return to the democratic governance since 1999 to date, it has always been a preponderance of two political parties, right? Up till this moment. In this election also, all attempts to produce a third force failed woefully. SDP, ADC, even YPP, because the kind of campaign carried out by somebody like Kensel Moyalo, I had expected that he would place third in this election. When I checked the records, I saw the guy coming a distant 12th or something like that. That is a story for another day. Wait a minute. Now I can see incursions. We had incursions, PDP, it took Oyo, right? They took Oyo, in the declared results. And we can also see APC taking Kwara. They took where again that is traditional stronghold of, here and there. There have been incursions from the two major political parties. For me, it speaks well of our democracy. It's growth. It shows that if we push a little harder, the people would be able to choose who governs them. And that is the beauty of democracy. Democracy is about the rule, the tyranny of the majority. Let me put it that way. The majority will have to choose who they want. It does not matter who the person is. If the person doesn't govern them well, they will suffer the consequence. And they will know that indeed they picked the person. So for me, it's actually, it's a good development, which, needs to be deepened. We need to study what happened in places like Oyo. We need to, is it an individual personality factor? What happened in Kwara? Is it an individual personality factor? Or are there other environmental, social, cultural factors that really tilted, the weight in favor of the opposition in those states? If we are able to do this, it's important that, whoever is trying to get into the political fray and wants to make an impact understands that, especially the young. I am personally disappointed, in our youth. I had expected that we did not too young to run, that the youth will take a party, hijack a political party and fail one who is truly a youth. and follow through to a logical conclusion.
Did they have the resources?
Well, I think I agree with him to the point where he talks about two-party system. But the only place I differ is that it has to evolve. It doesn't. It's not going to be decreed. It's going to come through an evolution, and in most other places, it evolves. And there is that. Even if you look at the history of the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, you will see that they didn't start as Labour or Conservative. They transformed. They kept transforming. And in the US, you have about 400 political parties. Okay, but less than 13 come on the ballot, and they still have independent candidacy. So you evolve into democracy is about allowing many flowers to blossom. Okay, at the level they want to do so. The YPP, all of those people, they can gain muscle. Let me tell you, the people we call dominant political parties today became dominant because they had their hand in the public till. That was where they started. The concentration of what you call dominant political parties today are wrong. And I can give you examples. When you had somebody in Sokoto, you know, running the DPP was dominant. When you had somebody in Abia running a party called PPA produced the governor. When you had somebody in Ondo State moving to Labour Party became. As soon as people do not have access to our public till, they no longer can survive us. So we need to do a lot of surgery in terms even of understanding our, first and foremost, our party system, the fluidity with which people move also. Because the one who is in APC today, there is nothing that tells you that in the evening. And that is why you can't engage them seriously on the basis of party. Okay? Everybody you have seen, go to Okogi, there's a musical chair there. The APC first senator moved to PDP, and he went to APC, came back. They are just exchanging those buttons among themselves. The citizens need to come to a point where we are going to have a conversation about building political parties. And we are not doing that because what you see is an extension of government houses. You have political parties and their chairmen who attend state executive council meetings. They say the chairman is waiting, the chairman is there. What is it doing? What is the big? So we need to be very honest about the kind of conversations that we engage in terms of understanding how fluid our political party system is. That's one for me. Then the not too young to run. I think there is also a misunderstanding about what not too young to run is. The first thing is that it is to remove the constitutional criminalization of young people pursuing a career in politics by age disqualification. So, in your constitution, you embed it in your constitution that somebody has to be 40 years before the person can aspire to be president of his country. He has to be, to even aspire is criminalized. And you put it in your law. So this not too young to run, what it has done is to successfully say, look, remove these bottlenecks. And you know what the Senate did? They refused to reduce their own age when they were reducing that law. So there is still work to be done. In other countries of the world, they are reducing even the age of voting. The Scandinavian countries are coming down to 15 years. So you don't put in your constitution that even if I have a double PhD, that I cannot contest for House of Representatives of my country except I am 30 years. Yeah. There is something that is not sitting well. So what is the... So not too young to run is not about running. Running is about capacity, is about competence, is about counting the costs. Now, the dominant political parties, as a matter of principle, elbowed out young people from their process. First and foremost, through exorbitant
expression of interest form.
That is where they. So you, if the not the Yaga did a study and showed that the places where young people went are parties the new parties. That is where they found accommodation. And from what you are seeing in the field, they are scoring 3, they are scoring 0. In many places, they are not showing, not because they don't have what it takes, but because the dominant I have a friend who contested the election, and people told him that you are a very good man, but you don't understand this. It is what is going on outside there is vote buying. Are we not seeing it? It's clear vote buying. So people are spending the young people and putting them out in spite of their campaign. Just to round up this, there are party agents. They mobilize party agents. Their party agents return their party cards to their party identification to them and follow somebody who has money. We must have that conversation. If you monetize the process, you close the space for for people to even make a career. If people are snatching ballot box, if what you need to have is a gun and not the ballot, then not even young people alone, self-respecting people will no longer touch this process. And we will be building a process that says, and once something takes a form in Nigeria, it becomes the norm. When people believe that the only way they can get to power is to snatch results, is to beat up electoral officials, and nothing is done about it, then we are in for bigger crisis.
Right, Minister.
Yes, before I talk about proliferation of political parties, I would like to debunk one point he made. Okay. And that the young people went and voted for the new parties.
No, they went into the new parties. There, that's where they went to contest.
Okay, not voting.
No, not voting. No.
Okay, then I raise my case. Otherwise, I wanted to say there is no empirical data to support that.
No. But besides, I wouldn't say that.
The new parties will have voted about 60% of the votes.
But I wouldn't say that.
So on the proliferation of political parties, I am not so much. I would not like to be categorical, say 2 parties and independent candidature. But my own concern is that Section 225 of the Electoral Act prescribes the qualifications upon which parties can be allowed to continue after elections. So it's a way to utilize it in sanitizing this huge number. Yeah. Beside the fact that about 200 political parties are there at standby. They have already applied at ANEC. They are waiting for registration immediately after this election. So the 9th National Assembly should take it as number 1 they should do to amend Section 225 of the Electoral Act to add the following additional qualifications. 1, that any political party that wants to remain as a political party, if it did not field in agents in all the polling centers at this 2019 election, it should fizzle out. That is 1. Number 2, that any political party that doesn't have structures of branches, federal, state, local government, and world level, because electioneering is about the citizenry, the population. Correct. So if you don't have structures down to the citizens, you should fizzle out as a political party. Not a situation whereby you have 3, 4 political parties in a business center in Abuja without any in any state, or talk less of local government or what. My point exactly. That is 2. Number 3, INEC should stop granting subvention for take-off of the operations of any political party.
They are not.
They have stopped it, but it is there in the Act. They have not touched that one. I want them to touch it, so that formally it should be removed. Number 4, any political party that doesn't have a manifesto and office that you can go and say, at our ward level, show me your manifesto. I want to study it to know whether I want to register with the party. Based on which you show me your membership register. Yes. That will show your strengths and rich enrootment. That I can register there. Any party that doesn't have that one, because most of them now, I don't think there are up to 5 of our registered political parties that have board of trustees now. And that is the reason why you see this gross indiscipline. You see political office functionaries growing wings heavier than the leaders of their political parties. You see somebody insulting leader, chairman of the political party, is a misnomer. It's a gross negation of our ethics as citizens, as per Section 23 of the Constitution, we should respect constituted authorities if we want to be respected. Nigerians should have culture of discipline, and it is absence of this discipline from the political parties that transcends into absence of discipline among the contestants, and by extension, the ones they recruit to superintend the election for them, and you will see demonstration of all these kind of things.
Yeah.
In those days, vividly, I can remember Second Republic, when Chief Adisa Akinlewe is sitting. You understand? Alhaji Suleiman Takuma as National Secretary is there. Shehu Shagari will come in. He will have to, first of all, fill a form to see his father. The national chairman is the father. Yeah. But nowadays, you will see, because of opportunism and lack of clear ideology, because, like I said, it's a politics of contractocracy. People would now be going to government houses to hold meetings of parties. There is no reason for that. And you should abolish leadership. You should abolish this position of party leader. It is not in the constitution of any party, and is not in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Respect should be done to the party, but if you deserve respect, you should be behaving responsibly too. You have to earn it. I don't want to see a situation whereby party leader will be behaving chali-chali in before a podium. You should be a man of highest conduct of respect, integrity, character, and discipline. Morality should be introduced in our politics if we want our political quality to improve.
All right, let's go to some of the votes that we've been seeing. And in a number of states, some we had seen poor return of figures in dealing with those who had won. But in some others, we had seen figures that had gone into at least the six-figure level. Yeah. And we have some examples where the winner is pulled close to 1 million, and the next contender was somewhere under 100,000. And these are places where the voters had decided to go to one direction. But again, we also had places where in the presidential and National Assembly elections, we had parties that had massive votes, and in the governorship, one would have thought that it would be a clean sweep by the governors of those states, but it's not happening.
I think
those are the states that refuse to pay bailout funds to settle indebtedness.
I think
they're collecting money, they refuse to work.
I think we started by saying I felt that what I've seen is a regime of punishments, and I said that.
Yes.
I said the electoral management body
was punishing
politicians for their misbehavior, and voters were also punishing, they are also public officials for in whatever way, and also rewarding some, as the case may be. In Delta State, for instance, where people had thought that it will be a hotly contested process, well, you are seeing a 900 and 200 difference, meaning that the people themselves, and without a lot of violence, okay? So you saw a more, in fact, in terms of the Clean Foundation, the Delta States are part of the states that are put as red states. But it didn't come out that way. So the people of Delta disappointed
a lot of people
in terms of the way it has come. So meaning that no matter what you say or do, they have shown that they want this governor back. And in a place like Oyo, where people have said they are constituted authority, they are the Lord and Manor, the people of the state have come to say you are not. In fact, they even expressed it in such a way that you won election 2 times, but you couldn't win a senatorial seat. Yeah. That is a huge lesson going forward for public officials in the country. And there is also the factor, that personal factor of the individual.
Okay.
In many of the elections that you have seen, whether it's presidential or not, there are states where for the presidential election, the people are clear about the direction that they are going. And there is nothing that could have taken them off that path, But for the governorship, in Kano, for instance, the contention that has taken place, the issue of the gates and the other things that have taken place in those places. They are manifesting in this election, and the voters are speaking clearly.
All right. Earlier on, we were onto our Port Harcourt Network Center, and where we were getting situation reports. Of course, you know that the election process was suspended, and the INEC had sent fact-finding team whose report we're expecting, and once we know about it from INEC, would let you into it. We had to suspend link with our Port Harcourt Center at that time because the signals were a little bit fuzzy. It would seem as if we've taken care of that now. And so we're returning to Donald. Let's get back to Donald in our Port Harcourt Center. Donald, yes, good thing we have you back now. Let's hope the signals are a lot better. And, well, I see with all the heat in Port Harcourt and Rivers, you're still very safe. So tell us what's the latest.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Port Harcourt. Before we left, we were talking about the impact of the suspension of the elections and the events preceding it on the business life in Port Harcourt. But just before we go into that, my panel is still partially here. A couple of them are. We have two persons left here. Dr. Nwi Yopugi is still here from the Rivers State University. And we have the director of the National Orientation Agency in Rivers State, Mr. Young Ayotamuno, also in the studio. Before we go into our discussions, let us report that the candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, Biopamabo Awara, has called on the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, to declare him winner of the 9th of March governorship election in Rivers State. Awara said this at a news briefing in Port Harcourt in reaction to the electoral processes in the state. Kingsley Amajiri reports.
The candidate of AAC in the governorship election in Rivers State alleged that the preliminary results from 15 local government areas of the state indicate that he was leading before the suspension of the process. He described the suspension as an ploy to deny him the victory, alleging that the INEC personnel are biased against his party.
Local government areas perhaps were the only two local government areas that the election process were disrupted in the light of the foregoing facts. I make the following demand that the result already aforesaid local government election centers should be accepted as being declared. That INEC should declare me, Engineer Professor Sawara of the African Action Congress, the winner of the 9th of March 2019 governorship election in the state.
However, further, INEC does not have power statutorily to suspend elections that results have been collated and announced local and at collation centers. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amajiri, NTA News.
Well, welcome back to the studio. We have Dr. Patrick from the Rivers State University. We were talking about the impact of all of this on the economy of Rivers State. How our business is going to be looking at this?
Certainly, you don't expect business to thrive in the ceremony and go running. All the commercial agents of the state have been thrown into hiding. Nobody is on the street because of the massive military presence and also the counterforce from the local boys that seems to be overpowering even the military themselves. For now, no business person will think of making any profit or making business in the first instance. For now.
That's a bad omen for Rivers.
Yes.
Director of National Orientation Agency.
It's a very bad omen for Rivers. Rivers State is the tourism hub of this region. With what has happened, a lot of people who are interested in investing in tourism here will begin to divest from this place. And before now, we have had this challenge in the last couple of years about activities of the political class, the marketing the area. You know, the strategy as an oil and gas producing country, in fact, the number one oil and gas producing country. And you also know that Bonny is also here. Bonny, part of the problem we had in the last the presidential election was that Bonny was not able to vote. And so you create a culture of fear act of violence that has been and we have also had the challenge of employment. And what do you have? When there's no employment, there's a skills gap also. When there's a skills gap, there's no employment. And when there's no employment, it means that poverty is entrenched. And we are talking about human capital, because the people that have died in this process, whether you like it or not, they have something. And then we are denied their contribution forever because they are dead. And so business certainly will be affected. You saw the clips, the video clips of Abarud, which is the main virtually shut down, demonstrations and so on. So definitely business is affected and destroyed, and the whole value chain that we have.
I guess you've got your job cut out for you.
Yes, we have.
Plenty of work to do as an orientation agency.
This
calls for plenty of education of the political class, of the youth, of the leadership of the states, the major stakeholders in the state. People need to be educated on how this can impact negatively on everybody's.
Certainly there's no retreat, no surrender for NOA. And that is what we have been doing over the period. When we saw the environments being messed up, NOA from the national, even we had a program of protecting the architecture of the place, that's infrastructural architecture of the country. And we are also into ensuring that people acquire skills to deal with the issues of unemployment. And that was why we had the Empower program. And we also have somehow the state governments, if they have programs, we also help promote such programs. But these issues that have to do with investment and the habits of our people and trying to demarcate the states, that is an area that we must definitely tackle, and we cannot do it in isolation from our political class, whom we expect that should cooperate in this context. We are going to, all stakeholders will be on board, as many civil societies as possible that are operating around here, and other stakeholders, including the industries that are here, we will all bring them together and make sure that things change.
On Friday, just before the election, the day before the election, the governor made a broadcast in which, among other things, he promised, well, I think before then, he had made a promise to all persons who've been affected by this, either by death or by injury, some kind of conciliatory gesture to compensate them, something that you would say would help the mood. What do you make of that, given that even if that message was received, it was well received, we would not have seen the kind of near mayhem situation that was, unleashed on the state on Saturday?
Really, I applaud the concern raised by the governor. Rivers people want to see action. Usually there is this distrust about political statements. It's when you try to demonstrate that your statement by giving some value action, that's when they take you on. Now, if a governor has given a statement, now he should make some effort, at least inform the people. This is what I have done in different local governments, from this part of the states that were affected. This is effort I have made to address that. If government will go further to do that, then we can say there is a seriousness and there will be trust. But if we don't see that, after like 2-3 days, I will just see a statement on the television or radio. Then the people will not say, it's a normal statement by governance. So that's the case. Secondly, in this atmosphere where there's so much distrust with the political class, it seems to me that nobody would be believing any statement on radio or television for me, because it looks like all the actions of bad boys and the military are being manipulated by the actors in the political scene. And so now, where do the people, other people want to? Where do we find succor? That's the point. Where do we want to?
Mr. Young, we've seen the results of other states. The PDP has won, or your state, Akwa Ibom State, and Delta State. We haven't seen this much acrimony. Are there any lessons for the politicians in Rivers State? these other politicians who have lost or won have people they want to serve. It doesn't appear people they want to serve in Rivers. Are there any lessons from all those states?
Yes, there are quite a number of lessons. Let's take our neighboring state, Akwa Ibom. Akwa Ibom elections have been done. Even the PDP state, we also saw the acrimony before that election. At the end of the day, results came out. And even though the other party
was not happy,
and they have not congratulated, because we expect that politics is to some extent a sport.
Yeah.
Even though it is a contestation for power, but the spirit of sportsmanship is what we expect
come to bear,
should also be brought to bear in politics. But at the end of the day, what we also expect is the government there, the incumbent that is returning. We also expect from him that, just like they are doing in other states, that he will extend the hand of fellowship to whomever he has won. And we also expect that there should be inclusion. There should be inclusion. We are talking about, when people talk about leading parties, I take an exception to it. One parties that we have in this country, and I think at least there should be some proportional representation in the government of any state that has won, to give everybody a sense of belonging. And it is against that background that I think that for Akwa Ibom State, that the winner should be in victory. And where anybody thinks otherwise, that is having been won, I think the courts are there. And I just had the former minority leader, Senator Akpabio, former minority leader in the Senate. Yeah. I heard him saying that, they will contest this things in court. Yeah. But what is happening should also be a lesson. I saw in Oyo State, where PDP won. I saw in Kwara State, where APC won. And immediately APC won in Kwara State. I saw Saraki, who is the DG of the presidential campaign for PDP. I saw Saraki immediately, the newly elected governor, and the incumbent governor also. So these should be lessons. The contestation for power here has taken a different dimension because of the particular and peculiar interest of the political actors. And we are saying that they must reinvent the love that Rivers State used to have, because this place, Rivers State, was so hospitable. We love one until what we are seeing in recent times began to blossom from some point. So I think that should be the spirit.
The decision of the Independent Electoral Commission to suspend the process, in a sense, demonstrates their power. And that took some of these actors by surprise. They were not expected. So INEC was able to say, look, we can only take so much. This is getting too much, and we suspend this. Go and challenge it if you like. We're waiting on INEC now. Yeah. There's some power in that. What do you make of ability to do this?
For me, I would say I'm so impressed, like I said in the last discussion that we had, impressed about the decision of INEC in this instance. I got it from news, some persons protesting for declaration of results. Now, everybody's aware of the dynamics and the crime rate with which elections were done here. In their wisdom, had decided, okay, it is not that they said they cancelled the election. They said suspended. We're going to go into investigate to find out why these things happen. And it would even be right for INEC if by any means they decide to cancel elections and they do them. It would be right. So they can bring all the apparatus of government that are ready to secure the vote. You'll be right. Because you cannot take isolated cases where if there were burning of houses and killing in Ghana, where they couldn't get results, and they got a result in Yemoa, and there was no reported cases of killing, are you sure there was no killing? These are the similar things around Rivers State. So there is no part of Rivers State that is free, to my knowledge. And so for me, the action of INEC, for me, is really impressive.
I think they have done the right thing.
Yeah.
They have done the right thing. State interest.
Yeah, first.
And national interest first. Yeah. You can't, because of your singular interest in power, to project your interest. Just stand by and see people being killed.
Should continue.
And that they should declare results. I think that is not the spirit of patriotism and nationalism. So I think they have done the best that they can. And I think they have done it in the best interest of Rivers.
Rivers people, yeah.
Because how many politicians, what is the percentage of the political class relative
to the masses?
The aggregate of the number of Rivers people. These are the issues that people cannot be dying, and then we just close our eyes.
Some people have accused the military in a manner that will put the military on their toes. They have plenty of work to do to redeem their image. Whether the stories be true or false, they've got plenty of work to do to claim who those fellows that were in military uniforms are. They have a responsibility to go after such people who are causing their image to take a battering. Do you think that the military is going to be doing this? Because a lot is at stake in terms of their integrity. And
I have maintained the position, even when I spoke earlier, before we had the technical itch. I said the Nigerian army, any day, I'll give them thumbs up. Any day at all, because it's a great army. You know, while everybody is sleeping, the army, they are there. And I also said that the constitutional role of the army is very, very clear. And added to it is the fact that the electoral guideline also made provision for where the military has to come in, if need be. Other than that, the guideline says that they should be in the outer perimeters of where elections are taking place. So what we find, that was why I was also interested. Is it really the army? Because for me, the Nigerian army is not a we and them thing. We and them.
Us.
This is us and them. It is a question of, a national army, maintained by taxpayers' money. Whether we like.
All right, we're taking another break. We're taking a leave of our Port Harcourt studio with Donald Overijo there, because we have to go and link straight off with our crew in Katsina. And as we said to you earlier on, we have Governor Aminu Bello Masari, who has won re-election, and we said to you we would be going over to him to speak with him live. And at this point in time, we're linking up with our crew in Katsina, where Ayinde Shuaga will be talking to Governor Aminu Bello Masari on a number of issues, his re-election, and of course his plans for Katsina State in his second term. We're having some issues with the signals, I believe. All right. But of course, a moment ago there we found, right. Okay. Okay. As soon as we can tidy up the issues with the signals, we'll return to Katsina and have that interview with Governor Aminu Bello Masari. Well, we're back here now in Abuja studios with Dr. Law Mefor, Ezenwa Wagu, and Menasara Kogo Umar. And just before we went off to Port Harcourt, Ezenwa was talking about certain trends that had played up. And he called it the political parties punishing, I'm sorry, the voters,
yes.
The electorate punishing political office holders,
yes.
For one reason or the other. And
yes.
that was why we saw massive votes in
yes.
the presidential and national assembly elections.
Yes.
And those votes are not turning into automatic victory votes for certain governors in certain states.
Yes, my own take on that was that, 2015 when President Buhari came on board, greater number of the states in Nigeria succeeded in getting change of governors. New people came in as governors, and then these new people inherited huge debt. Their predecessors went and signed bonds with banks, collected monies, the repayment of which in advance will take about 10, 15 years. So when they came on board, there was virtually no money for them to even oil the machinery of governance in their respective states. They now met President Buhari. President Buhari magnanimously decided to give them what was called bailout funds. Go and extinguish the indebtedness. Especially, he specifically mentioned, because some states were having indebtedness of up to 2-3 years of worker salaries. Go and extinguish worker salaries, settle pressing contractors. so that you will have stability to start governance. Then immediately after that, we got this refund back from Paris Club, which was called Paris Club Refund. That one too went to the governors. Now, instead of the governors to utilize this money for what they now agreed gentlemanly with His Excellency the President, most of them squandered the money. In fact, most of them went out into frivolities. At the end of it, now that there is election, greater number of these same states are having indebtedness of worker salaries to the tune of some up to 2 years. In fact, some are having huge quantum of indebtedness. Those that are even living are still considering the issue of signing bond in respect of mortgaging the hegemony and the liberty of their citizenry for the next 10, 15 years when they live. So people now realize that all those unimaginable El Dorado promises these governors made for them, that they did not really translate that into fruition for them. There is no improvement in their standard of living. And then President Buhari said, okay, as against the straitjacket of, what do you call it, from toy, head to toy, sack in Hausa they call it. Now go by character. Don't go just because somebody is with my party. Go by character of the individual. Now it is a process of clinical political evaluation of the character and the morality of the power players at the state level that determines whether or not the citizenry in that respective state will now vote for that person again or not. That is the reason why you see a lot of surprises. So many people, because the citizens, they said who wears the shoes know where it pinches. The citizens in the respective states knows whether or not the incumbency of Mr. Sobodi has translated into the dividends of the democracy as they promised us during electioneering campaign. Then it now came to a situation whereby you discover those that are in this party A, party with peacock head, and then party with this guinea fowl head. For example, this one has at one point jumped into the other party, the other one has jumped into during their gladiatory defections. So as a result of which, the electors look at them and said, if you are saying party X is negative, you were there before coming to party Y. If you are saying party this, so they discovered that there is virtually no change, and that brought about that disenchantment of the citizenry to even go out and vote, because they didn't see credible, competent, clinically established patriots coming out to say we are serving as veritable alternatives to the incumbent ones that are in the DC. That, I believe, is my submission on the reason why you see apathy regarding the governorship election, different from the quantum of the participants at the presidential and the National Assembly. Even at the presidential and the National Assembly, remember, the quantum of the votes for the president diametrically was different from that of the National Assembly. Right. And the reason simply is because the National Assembly members within the last 4 years did not play the game in unison as provided by Section 3 of the Constitution. Section 3 says government is a three-piece of collar knot that has Section 4, the legislature, Section 5, the executive, and Section 6, the judiciary. That these three should play in decorum. And then it said Section 130 that the president is the chief executive officer of the federation. Now the president now said, okay, let us respect the Constitution. The fight against corruption, Section 15, subsection 5, is already there since 1999. It's not anything new. But he rekindled them and said, let us fight it. The provision says that the state here translates meaning the president, the ministers, the governors, commissioners, members of the judiciary, members of the executive, members of the legislature, members of the armed forces, whosoever has responsibility of governance is part of the state. Unfortunately, they now narrow it to say fight against corruption is President Buhari's fight alone. As a result of which, when President Buhari now pressed for the bill to establish anti-corruption code, they said this is targeted towards us. They throw it away. When he said let us establish election offenses tribunal or commission, they throw it away. When he bring about the issue of whistleblower policy, they throw it away. When he went and spent about 1.5 years to tailoring around different parts of the world, signing agreements bilaterally, multilaterally, that would be able to bankroll huge quantum of trillions for us to serve developmental programs, and at the same time to be able to extradite all those criminals and to neutralize all their investments across the globe for the betterment of citizens of Nigeria. They now said, okay, the president immediately on return send it as per the provision of Section 12, subsection 1B, which says that all treaties cannot be implemented until 2/3 of the members of the Senate sign it as a law. They now presented it, Up to this moment, it has not gotten even first reading. When this type of, he now presented budget almost 6, 7, 8 months consistently from 2015. They are delaying it until such a time when he now agrees, okay, let us put what was called constituency project. There is no business whatsoever of the legislator to go into execution of projects. It is an aberration and repugnant to the doctrine of checks and balances and separation of power. They now bring about all those things. Selfish interest comes into play over and above the interest of the nation as a whole. So as a result of which the citizens said, are these the type of citizens we want to vote again to be our members of the National Assembly? Those that will be jumping over fence, those that will be entertaining Nigerians with commando style of jumping from a pickup band down because they want to evade, or those that will deliberately be serving as comedians to deliberately pretend that they are sick so that they will now evade court processes. They will go to the sick bed rather than going to courtroom. These are the type of things that the citizens understand and then decide, say, okay, these ones are not. If we want to vote anybody, we want to vote somebody that has the exact reflection of President Muhammadu Buhari's discipline, charisma, competence, credibility, acceptance, sincerity, and the doctrine of transparency and simplicity of life. These are the things that are lacking, and the quantum of those with these qualities are very, very in the decimal. And that is the reason why the citizens decided not to push so much of their energy in voting those type of people to be recycled back into power, either at the level of senators or at the level of the governors or at the level of any other position of governance in Nigeria. What we need now is evolution of serious statements that have Nigeria over and above any primordial sentiments or consideration, whether it's tribal, whether it's even political party interest, whether it's even the interest of the office you are occupying, whether it's even the interest of your religion or the section you belong to. We want to see a translation of united Nigeria as far as the provisions of the Constitution, sections 15 subsections 2, 3, and 4, section 17 subsection 1, 2, 3, and section 14 subsection 2 and 3, and spounds fundamentally section 15 subsection 1 of the Constitution that give us a motto: unity and faith, peace and progress. We must agree that we want to be a united entity based on peace as a basis upon which progress will flourish on our land.
Right, okay. Before.
Thank you, my brother, Mesan Menasara.
Thank you, sir.
You have made my job a lot easier. Because you covered, you covered a lot of the ground. And yeah, I agree. I agree with Menasara,
Thank you.
You know, to a very considerable extent. And I want to just add one area I consider very strategic and fundamental.
Yes.
The indistinguishability between political parties in Nigeria, especially the two leading political parties, APC and PDP. Come to think of it, if you remove President Buhari and Tinubu from APC, who else is live there that is not coming from PDP? I don't know.
That is it.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And if you remember the legacy parties, you know, that formed the APC, you had the new PDP that came from PDP to help in disbanding the presidency of Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
Yes, yes.
They went back to PDP after that, right? And practically hijacked the party that they left its carcass 3 years ago. If you check the process, you know, those who flew the flag of the PDP, they are mainly the returnees. They are the people that stayed back in the party to ensure that the party was rebuilt. You know, we are practically sidelined. Now, let me tell you something. When you have two political parties that cannot be distinguished from the other, there is a problem. It means that you do not have ideology that can be used to really discuss and say, this is what this party stands for. In all honesty, I haven't seen who has been able to distinguish for me between the PDP and the APC. For me, they are sides of the same, two sides of the same coin. Now, if, you know, coming from that postulation, the voters the electorate are left with no choice other than to focus on the individuals. That's exactly what has happened. No, so you see, the party discipline ought to take its bearing from the party ideology, which is essentially like it. So what the masses decided to do was to follow the individuals directly, weigh them on the balance, and stake whatever it is with them, voting for them regardless of the party, but on their individual merit.
All right.
I think that is exactly what.
And at this point, we'll have to take a breather from this discussion. The next few minutes, we'll be linking up with our news studios, where I'll bring you the network news. For now, Nigeria Decide Studios will take a short break, but we will return after the network news. Let me just take some time out to thank our guests who have been here. Ezenwa Wagu, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reforms. It's been interesting to have you, as always. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Mainasara Kugo, it's always a pleasure. It's a delight. Well, next time we'll come in with this constitution. Thank you so much for always giving us an insight into the provisions of the constitution. Thank
My
you.
prayer is for Nigeria to unite.
All right. And then Dr. Lome, for forensic and social psychologist and journalist, thank you for being here. Well, we'll take a break now. I'll be stepping down after this time out, and my colleague Mohammed Kudu Abubakar will be joining you at 10 o'clock later tonight when Nigeria Decide Studios reopens. For now, I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.